welcome to Live with Lava Sub. I am Lava Submersible, or Weston, you can call me that too. And I'm here with a very special guest, my old buddy, Reinhardt. Ryan!
Weston.
So glad to have you, man.
Yeah, our audience, our legions of adoring fans might know me as Julian Alvari from our Ironhearts campaign.
But, certainly are.
Here, I'm just a nerd in a suit that doesn't fit.
Yes. As usual, I want to get ahead of it this stream and say, content warning. We may be getting into some heavy territory emotionally. We might be talking about all kinds of things from healthy masculinity to Ryan's experience as a veteran who is now a leftist, at least partly based on your experiences. Yeah, quite a bit of other heavy stuff. We'll probably not get too heavy, but also this is our high school, so we come from this. This is what we thought in our position as high schoolers, what rich people looked like. This is what we thought that was what. So just giving you an idea of our economic conditions as teenagers.
They all dressed in enough clothing to fully rig a 17th century sailing vessel. They all had long hair that was shellacked to their head.
Yeah.
And if you weren't doing laudanum, you were drinking scotch.
Yes, absolutely a feature of this play is a lot of whiskey or scotch and a lot of laudanum. And,
I mean, let's be real. It was some kind of brown. It was actually tea, but it was some kind of vague brown liquor that we had no idea what the fuck.
Yeah, obviously, very fictional. We are minors in this photo, and this was a school production. We were not actually doing any of these substances, just for any ops lurking. In case it wasn't obvious from, me being built like a stork in that picture. That makes two of us. My God. Yeah, so I guess let's just get right into this, man. I mean, yeah, this is our high school production of a play called The Vampire. It's actually being made into a feature film right now. I can't remember who and all that, but it's actually based.
You're Arton. I can Google. I got you, buddy.
Well, thank you. Yeah, but ultimately, it's based on this play or this concept by this dude named John Polidori, who actually Lord Byron's one of Lord Byron's servants, and he wrote this story about a vampire. One of the earliest written stories about a vampire. Of course, everything before that folklore exists, but this was pre-Dracula, a story about a person who at least feeds off the life force of others, the vampire, and this is actually, it's one of my favorite plays I ever did. I got to play the lead, and that meant, well, I guess lead is a weird way to put it.
Yeah, because you weren't the title vampire. I think that went to Jeremy.
Right. Yeah, I mean, Lord Ruthven is the central character of the plot. I am essentially Lord Ruthven's, victim, or, vampire Knoll, however you kind of, think about that in your head canon. But, yeah.
It's Renfield before Renfield was a term.
Yeah, fantastic way of putting that, my friend. And just getting into the details of it, we grew up in Central. Well, this was at Central Valley High School in Redding, California. A very, very nasty place. I
was just back there last week visiting family.
You grow up different there.
Yeah. You either escape or you really don't.
Yeah, it's the truth, and it's not an easy place to escape from. You have to have, in some cases, a certain amount of privilege. In some cases, you gotta do something like join the service. It might not be something that you want to do, but in many cases, no matter what it is, it's a lot better than staying there.
Yeah. No, it did end up working out for me. My escape was more or less successful. Um, you know, but lots of people, yeah, lots of people like, just they just stay. And it's weird because the town is actually shrinking. So every time I go back to town, I look at the population sign, and it's clearly been updated since the last census. Like when we lived there, it had a population of around 96,000. Reading did, like, and obviously, there's the surrounding towns, but now it's down to like 80 something. And so,
Oh,
yeah, so the town is shrinking, and of course, like people who don't understand how labor works, or how supply and demand works either, are just like, well, nobody wants to work anymore. And it's like, A, nobody's being paid to work, and B, like, I don't know if you understand this, but where there are fewer people, there are fewer people to do jobs. Therefore, there
yeah,
are more job openings than job seekers. That's science.
absolutely is, my friend. And it's a very strange thing because, as I've mentioned on stream before, Reading is kind of being ran and ultimately slowly bought up by a very weird cult.
If you were gonna say goddamn cult, I was gonna say it for you, buddy. So
it's 100% what they are, and we know that because we know plenty of people who experienced their cult-like behavior and told us exactly what they experienced. And
my wife included. Like,
yeah, I didn't want to say it, but I know your wife's experience with that church is, I know some of the stories, and that's probably a micro fraction of what actually happened there. And what I have heard is incredibly disturbing.
yeah, the only, because I was fortunate enough not to my dad didn't take us to church really, so I missed the opportunity to go to Bethel, but yeah, no, she tells me that like their youth groups would be sent out to go prophecy over people, just randos, like they kids going out, hey, go find people and do a prophecy at them. And so they'd go out and do that and be like, oh, watch out for your hearing, and something about you're, you might face tragedy in the next couple of years or some shit. So real weird stuff.
Exactly. Some very strange behavior that they were getting children to do. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but they definitely have their faith healings have turned into a couple of investigations on whether or not they were responsible for somebody's the end of somebody's life.
Interesting.
Because
I have not looked into it lately. But please.
Yeah, there. At least in one instance I'm sure of, there was a person who, instead of being helped by these younger people, they were these people attempted to faith heal them, and it resulted in their passing.
Oh God.
Yeah, some very weird things.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I have a personal, like, real, like, issue with things that are purported to be medicine. Like faith healing is obviously a thing where it's like, no, get them medical care, but homeopathy, crystal healing, chiropractic, like some of these fields have gotten themselves taken so seriously that to anybody watching, like, they might hear me compare chiropractic to faith healing and go, oh, that's science, but it's not. There's no, like, scientific evidence or anything. It's just it was invented by a guy who claims he learned it from a ghost. Like, that's the science behind getting your back cracked by a quack. Like,
yeah. Oh, sorry. Continue, please.
No. It's just one of those things that I will frequently like. I'm not a confrontational person, like to an unhealthy degree. But sometimes, like when it's something that like that, where it's like something I'm passionate about, and most of the time it won't get up in people's feels for me to like be like passionate about. I will absolutely go on a rant about pseudoscience and homeopathy, and especially chiropractic, because people take it seriously. They're like, oh yeah, I just went to the chiropractor and they fixed up my back, and it's like, why don't you go to an actual like physical therapist, like somebody who's, you know, qualified to do that. Like,
somebody who knows medicine? Yeah.
You know, just
It's a wild idea.
Yeah.
But I think it could work. Yeah, no, it's incredibly frustrating. You know, I can see so many reasons for why it's picked up. I think, by and large, it's, you know, at the fault of our healthcare system and how incredibly inaccessible it is for most people.
There's definitely an economic aspect to chiropractor cheaper than physical therapist.
Yeah, and I can even respect the idea that, I definitely respect the idea that some of these practices are cultural, and if that's your vibe, you know, that's your vibe, you know, if that's where you come from, if that's, you know, I'm not going to judge you on your cultural practices, but there are some things like chiropractic that are kind of just quack science and don't really have like that history, you know?
Yeah, like there's no. It was invented in the 1800s in the U.S. by a dude who started out as like a magnetic healer. He like would put magnets on people and cure them, and, you know, purportedly, and then he just moved on to thinking, oh, I think misalignments in the back are the root of all illness, so I'm gonna start a whole ass because it was literally the Wild West. You know, it was like the mid to late 1800s or whatever. Like, and so there weren't a lot of qualifications to be a medical professional. It's like, are you a dude? Like, do you have a wiener? Then you can be a doctor in the late 1800s. Like, congratulations. No
this
medical.
Is not inaccurate.
I don't think we included wieners in the content warning, so we probably should have preempted that. Sorry about the wiener talk.
Yeah. Although I can say that's a regular thing you should expect in my streams.
Yeah, no, I assume talking to you, I had to be the first one to bring up wieners.
I'm ashamed.
No, you should be. You should be. I hold you to a higher standard than this, and you just aren't meeting anybody.
I've let you
Frankly,
down. No.
Yeah. R.I.P.D. man.
Well, I did want to just say it's interesting because this whole period is marked by a lot of different types of literal, the term invented, snake oil salesman that immediately conjures images of exactly the kind of person we're talking about. These people that are absolutely not medical professionals selling different tinctures or regimens to try it that will save your life and cure every ailment from you know, the common cold to the most severe, I don't know, polio, whatever was popular back then. The most
severe polio, not that weak ass polio that just takes a leg.
Yeah, you know, the extra one. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. FDR style polio.
Oh yeah, exactly. So I am obviously not a medical professional, but even I can tell neither are these quacks.
Yeah, for me, it's not hard to assess your sources, even if you're a big dummy like us. Just, you know, do I want the sketchy practitioner in the strip mall who you know claims to have learned it from a guy who learned it from a ghost, or and yeah, and you know, or do I go through somebody who, you know, like has an MD next to their name and presumably went to school to learn how the body actually functions, like, and can prove scientifically a lot of these things, like, or is it just like, I went to 2 years a chiropractic school, and I'll tell you what, I can cure you cold with just a rough application of pressure to your neck, or your baby's neck. Yeah. Have you ever seen those videos of like infants getting chiropractic? And I'm not on camera, so I can't do the scare quotes, but just all the finger quotes that a football team could muster. I'd need a football team worth of people to give me enough finger quotes around professional here.
Yeah.
But a medical professional who does that, like, oh my God, get your hands off that fucking baby, man.
Yeah. Went to Hucksters University.
Oh my God. Oh yeah, no, special. You know what? The cheerleading squad, the offensive line, the defensive line, all the coaching staff, the vendors at the stadium, the audience, every fan of said football team in the world, the 5-year-old Indonesian child that made their jerseys.
Oh!
The whole team.
Oh God.
Oh,
yeah.
Child slavery. Oh, I'm so edgy.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well,
So
yeah,
let's...
great talk, but I'll talk to you later.
yeah, bye. Okay, so oh my God, this picture. Sorry, I'm just looking at the majesty of...
I'm like, take a hit, bro. Just chill out.
Yeah, you want some laudanum, Doc? Yeah, I played Dr. Durwood Lennox.
That sounds right.
No, one of our cast members could not get the name right. Durward or Dowood or whatever she was saying, whatever she would call me. Like, and now, you know, because I forgot to grab the script on my way upstairs to my office, so I don't remember what it actually is. Surely you or Sam have it in front of you.
I was just looking at it. I'm pretty sure you're right. Either way, it was definitely Durwood, because I remember very specifically, I think it was Crystal, and how she would say it was like, she would kind of like put an extra emphasis on the U.
Ashley, I know, couldn't get it right.
And
she said it. Yeah. Man, talking about people that we haven't... I've talked to Crystal much more recently than I've talked to Ashley. Like, a lot of that cast, like, and just like everybody in high school, just like everybody in Reading, they either escaped or they didn't, and you either kept in touch with them via Facebook or whatever, or you didn't.
Yeah. Oh man, I would love to get into the personal drama and all that stuff.
Yeah, probably not on them internets.
Yeah, I mean, but I think what ultimately we would come to talk about is just how growing up in Reading can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. For some of the people in the cast, you know, they were living in severely repressive homes and had rules to live by that most people, regardless of age, wouldn't be able to actually meet the requirements for.
Oh yeah, no, like there is a lot of religious extremism in that town outside of just of the mega church that is slowly consuming it.
Right.
There's always been like some deeply repressive religious communities in that area, and it's kind of wild having grown up with these people, like just because I know one of our cast members who was in a deeply religious community. Like it's amazing how in those environments you either like go in whole hog because it's like your whole identity, or is it like or you just completely like the opposite direction, just what I think I'm going to just read a bunch of Richard Dawkins books and get really, really mad about it, and or go do some stuff that's just you were never allowed to do, like go do some, go be a sex worker. Like that literally happened to, like she literally was like, I'm done with this religious stuff. I think I'm gonna go do some exotic dancing. Like,
Yeah,
it's wild how far like how that happens. There's very little middle ground, I think, where somebody's just like, I used to be in the cult, but it's just not for me. So whatevs.
Yeah, I mean, that kind of repression, that kind of like, especially for young kids who are supposed to be exploring who they are and things of that nature, it really stunts growth. And some people make decisions, like big decisions, like sex work, before they're ever really like
ready to make like can make that an informed decision, like.
And I don't mean that like, because I'm right there with you, but it's not the way that they're like underage. It's a way that,
like, let's get that out. Like neither you or I have any beef with. Fuck. I mean, yeah. Neither of us have any.
Yeah, I'm just saying that it can end in really exploitative kind of situations, because you don't know what you're doing yet. You don't have a community that can guide you.
Yeah. Which would be a fun segue to the military, maybe.
Yeah, no, I mean, because that
making giant decisions that affect the rest of your life, possibly,
1,000%. Yeah, dude,
too
especially
early
then.
in age to really make it. You know what?
Yeah.
Did I tell you that? You remember Jamie? Lived down the street from me.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Did you know that he was the one that convinced me to join the army?
Oh my god.
You didn't know this. Oh my god. Okay. So, story time. So,
fair warning, he might be in the chat right now. He follows the disco.
Oh my god, that's awesome. Oh, I haven't talked to you in years, dude. If you're in there, reach out, say howdy. But yeah, no, he was like, I don't know what it was, but like I was a terrible student in high school. I just didn't do my work and stuff. Like it was to the point where I did summer school like for 2-3 years, and like I wasn't going to college. That was not something that was likely to happen given my like C average. Hell, I was almost a super senior, but Jamie was like, hey dude, let's join the army. And I'm like, that sounds stupid. It's 2004. Don't you know there's a war on? He's like, yeah, but it'll be cool. We'll go together. We're friends. And I was like, we are friends. So,
You're kidding me.
Yeah, so yeah, we were, and that was actually an option that some people there was like a buddy thing, and in retrospect, it would have been like pretty dumb because him and I'm sure would have chosen different jobs, and like, oh, we would have been able to spend basic training together, and that's like 2.5 months of just like getting yelled at and not socializing. Awesome.
Yeah.
And so we talked to the recruiter. We ended up talking to the army recruiter like and like I super regret not joining like the Air Force. I'm just gonna put that out there. I would have gotten promoted at the same rate. I would have probably done this exact same job because it was like nerd army stuff. And like we go visit the army recruiter, we take the ASVAB, and then he just doesn't join the army. Like I was 17, and you know, our my English teacher was like, "Hey, it looks like you're joining the army. You would fail my class, but I don't see any point to holding you back. So here's a couple points of extra credit, and I'm going to lower my minimum passing grade to a 68 so you can get out of here." And so I ended up, you know, going to basic training, and Jamie did not. And like
That sucks.
him and like I don't know. I feel like the military like is one of those things where it's like it can have good results for people. It you know, like I obviously doing really bad in high school and stuff. Like I didn't have a real internal source of motivation. I still kind of don't. And so, you know, but having a source of external motivation, you know, challenging me in ways that I wouldn't have been challenged otherwise. It was I think healthy for me in some ways. Like some of my military, obviously a lot of it was not as healthy. I went to Iraq, and that wasn't the best time. But you know, it was a net positive for my life, I think. In a lot of ways. But some people it's just not, you know, it's either nothing or it sucks, you know. And I don't know that Jamie would have gotten much out. Maybe he would, but maybe wouldn't have. And honestly, like I think he had a really interesting fulfilling set of experiences otherwise. Like he, you know, I saw him in Philadelphia in like 2010. He was just hanging out in a park having because I lived in Maryland at the time. I was still in the army, and you know, we connected, like we messaged each other on Facebook, and it turned out he was in Philly or whatever, which is not very far from where I live, just outside of Baltimore. So, you know, drove out there to see him, and we you know, went back to my apartment, and he was telling me about, like, you know, all this cool stuff he did, like you know, going to Mexico and swimming in the ocean, and like just hitchhiking across the country, and like it all sounded really cool. You know, just not the kind of experience that you could have in the military unless you were up for getting in a lot of trouble, you know. So that's your options.
Right, a very different version of those events.
Oh yeah. No, but
and it's oh shit. Well, yeah, I was just gonna say it's interesting because it's not like those, a lot of the people who should have been guiding us, especially in a school kind of situation, were not there for us. And then the people, they didn't give the rat's ass about how well we did, especially like if you weren't for me and for you, I think we both had a really similar kind of experience, other than the fact that they kept, for my entire, it's so weird, I went through a box recently. That's actually why I started doing all of these drawings of these memories, is because I was going through this big box, and in the process I found a bunch of my like paperwork from that I'd never seen from my special education stuff, and this was always like, this was stuff from my mom. I think that she ended up putting it in this big crate that I have, that's all full of like my like baby photos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
and reading some of this stuff was just like, oh yeah, of course they didn't want to help me. they're constantly like bringing me in and then forcing me out as quick as possible. I'm not meeting their criteria for special education, so I'm either not getting any assistance, or the assistance that I'm getting is obviously not helping, and just bouncing me back and forth between regular and special education. And literally, I moved to Reading in 1996, I think, and I was 7 years old, and I didn't have like a person I could trust in my life that lived in Reading until I met Normetta Muir my freshman year of high school.
Yeah,
our drama teacher.
Yeah, the one who put, honestly, yeah, I owe that lady a lot. Like, just, I mean, if I hadn't been in this play, I wouldn't be married to the person I am now. So there's that. But
Yeah.
you know, also like I feel like, you know, like drama and acting was a good way for me to get out of my shell. Like I still, you know, I've still never, you know, quite interacted in a not awkward way, but it was fun to pretend, you know? And so, yeah, and there was a sense of community there that I wouldn't have otherwise had, because, I mean, high school, in retrospect, can be really isolating. Like, that's why it gets so cliquey, because, you know, like if you can find that common thread with people, like, you kind of stick together. And I don't know what causes the alienation or the animosity that happens in high school, but, you know, it's good to have like a community around you to sort of insulate you from that, in a sense. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I've said multiple times on this stream, I wouldn't have survived high school if it wasn't for the theater and the punks. But mostly, especially in our high school, that was basically the same people.
Yeah. I was a huge poser with the punks, but
Ryan introduced me to the punk scene. Like, there were plenty of punks in Reading that we were in theater with, but I think Ryan was like the first person who was like, yeah, you should come out to this show at this time. We'll go together or something like that. I met you there, and yeah, like, you were one of the people that, yeah.
I mean, I did really like it, but oh man, I like in retrospect, like I'm really glad like I got into punk music, because I mean, it was the early 2000s, and you know, like the early 2000s and the 80s, I feel like were just good times for punk. Like, granted, I think there's a solid argument that the defining punk album of the early 2000s, to my everlasting just cringe, is Green Day's American Idiot. Yeah, I know. You would never catch me dead saying anything even positive about Green Day in high school, because, you know, they sold out, man.
Okay. Yeah, no, you know, it's interesting, because I definitely had that perspective too. I like, you know, I like this one album thing. I can't even remember which album. Honestly, it's not like one of those bands that I really care about. What I can appreciate is the fact that they still do shows in the Bay Area where they came up from. Mm-hmm. A lot of the time, very low key, kind of in secret, and kind of basically just are shows for the community that helped them get where they are. And that's the kind of punk rock that we need in the world. Regardless of what I think about them musically or whatever, you know, those dudes had their own issues that they had to work out, and honestly, I think punk music is just generally better for it.
I do want to jump in here, like, on the whole thing, because of the Green Day thing. This is producer Semantics, by the way.
Hi, Sam.
Yeah, hello. I just wanted to say hi to the stream really quick. But to piggyback on what Weston said about Green Day, I will say this. When they took American Idiot and made it into a stage production, they workshopped it in Berkeley so that locals could see it first. And I thought that was really cool of them as well. So I just wanted to kind of tie that back into the theater thing as well.
Yeah, I didn't even know about the stage production.
Yeah, they turned it into a full-on musical.
Oh shit! I think the only live musical I've ever seen was when I went to go see Hamilton at the beginning of this year in Denver.
I'm jealous.
Because a friend of mine at work was just like, "Hey man, they're selling tickets to Hamilton. You want me to claim one for you before they all sell out in like an hour?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay. Like, you know, like how often do you get that opportunity?" Sure. Like, so yeah, just got the nosebleediest of the nosebleed seats. We like the theater there in Denver, the Performing Arts Center, is vertigo inducing when you're in those balcony seats, man, because like the slope is like it affords you a decent view of the stage from like the shittiest seats in the house. So there is that to be said for it, but it's still like, you know, when you're on a roller coaster,
I know
and you're
exactly
at the, like,
what you're talking about.
Top of the begin, like before you're about to go down the first really big steep hill, like you did the chug all the way to the top, and then you're stopped at the top of the big drop, and you're just sitting there in anticipation. That's what sitting in those seats kind of felt like. Just the perspective of just like, okay, when are we going down? When are we gonna make this 100-foot plunge? But no, it was really good, and I don't know if it's heretical of me to say, but I appreciated that the lead was not Lin-Manuel Miranda, because frankly, I don't like his voice. Like, hot take, I think Lin-Manuel Miranda has kind of a weird nasally voice and isn't a commanding presence on the stage based on the film version of Hamilton I saw, or you know, the soundtrack that you can listen to on them internets. So it was fun that my first real experience seeing that had a Hamilton that I felt had a good voice for the role, you know?
Nice.
No offense to him, he wrote a great musical.
No.
He directed a great musical.
Yeah.
But goddamn it, you're getting to Tommy Wiseau territory when you also star in that musical.
Yeah.
Like,
I agree. It's why I could never be in anything that I wrote myself.
Oh, for sure.
This is why I'm a DM and I have players to play in my worlds.
Yeah, the sheer unadulterated like ego that must be necessary for you to be like, no one can star in this masterpiece but me. Like, you know, I just have to be the lead. I'm the only one who can communicate my artistic vision. It's
calling me out.
No, it is a staggering amount of confidence, and I'm not trying to. I know, you know, the Tommy Wiseau. Yeah. In Tommy Wiseau's case, it was reach that exceeded his grasp for sure. Lin-Manuel Miranda has plenty of talent.
No, I understand. Yeah. It's like the difference between like stepping back and asking, would I cast myself in that role if I were a different director?
Oh yeah. Do I have the balls to do all that? Like, no, I do not. I absolutely
do it well. That's the big thing. Is like you might be able to do it, but can you do it all well at the same time?
Yeah.
And that is a much more loaded question for most people to
how
answer.
Many spinning goddamn plates?
I have 2 hands.
Yeah.
So I you know, yeah, I'm a fan of any art, but I am not like the biggest musical like stan, you know, even for like someone who's done as much theater as I have. I'm not a big fan of musicals. There's a few that I love, Like Hedwig and the Angry Inch is a banger. Phantom of the Paradise is a banger. Most of these are films that, you know, were either adapted from a stage play or something of that nature. But yeah, I think if I had the option, I would rather see an opera in a language I completely don't understand than go see a musical in English. Because I love the artistry that goes into opera. It's one of the most difficult art forms to pull off and have an audience believe you. The audience at that point, I mean, especially right now for opera, it's like the most crusty old people and wealthy elites. So, I mean, it's not like an art form that I feel like is really available to many people, which is why it's not necessarily like talked about very often. We don't see many operas these days.
Okay, pro tip, go on YouTube. There are a ton of recorded stage operas there.
Oh no, I'm fully aware.
I'm telling everybody, go.
Oh
Go
yeah,
watch them. They're hilarious in the most part. Like so many of them are so funny.
Oh no, a little extra butt.
Oh, because no. Okay, so here's the thing about
my pretending.
My beautiful figure in this picture.
Are you upset about your cakes?
Oh my god, I had no cakes. Like. It was cakeless. Yeah, no, yeah. Sad pancake butt. Like, okay, I weighed at the time like 120 pounds tops, and I was still like a couple inches under 6 foot, like the same height I am now. Like I was fully grown height-wise when I graduated high school, and I weighed about 80 pounds less than I do now.
And they let you join the army?
They did. No, yeah, by the time I got out of basic training, I was like 135, and then I stayed like 160 for a while, and then, I don't know, just the last few years, it's just like,
like Captain America.
Honestly, I was kind of shredded. Like, I'm not gonna bullshit. Like...
Oh, yeah. Okay,
I had America's ass.
He did.
They made it that way.
The first time Ryan came home, I think it was right after basic, we did a whole movie about how basically now Ryan's shredded and gets puss.
I did not actually. Well, I think I lost my virginity on my first trip home.
Yeah, I know. That's why we made that movie.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. That was a whole thing. Obviously, no names to protect the innocent.
Ryan lost his virginity and has muscles now. I played a cat at one point, licking yogurt that was supposed to be something else off of a stuffed animal.
My.
And I also played a human. Actually, I think I played you or the other person, but I was getting staples in my ass. We used a staple gun. It really, we did it for effect. We didn't just not have staples in the gun. We needed to have staples to staple my ass.
And I'm absolutely sure that the movie was just as awkward as the actual sex was.
I just want to be like, take note, everybody. This is not what normally happens for nerdy guys. This is exceptional. This is very exceptional.
We were really close. We loved each other. I mean, we still do. We all play D&D together. Half the people that play this game with us were in this movie.
I would like to point out, though, that when we were in high school, we did not have, at least I did not have, any actual RPG books at all. We had to make them up. We had to invent our own rules. We didn't have dice. We didn't have books.
Yeah. Who had money for that?
Oh, I certainly didn't, but my dad had the old books, so we had those to work with.
No, so, okay, I grew up in a household where my stepmom said the internet was the tool of the devil and it wasn't allowed in the house.
Oh no.
Mm-hmm. And, Dad was just kind of apathetic about it, just like, whatever. And then, and D&D was certainly its Satan worship. Like, they still had that 80s satanic panic about them.
Uh-huh.
We were definitely gonna sacrifice a little kid. West Memphis 3 style.
Yeah, as you do during D&D, just regularly, like normal people.
Just like the Tom Hanks movie. You Okay. I'm sorry. I'm going to go on a slight tangent. Not that this conversation isn't
we are
entirely
so used to
tangent.
tangents here. I think we are all ADHD.
Excellent. So we'll just bounce off each other in the most bananas way. But goddamn.
I think I'm just on the stream now, you guys.
Yeah. No, you're welcome to the stream, Sam. Sam, everybody.
Yep.
Producer Sam
Thank you.
is on the stream now. She's part of the convo.
I'm joining the conversation.
I'm happy for. Yeah, you were like making comments. You're like, I got it.
You pulled me in. I couldn't stay out.
I try to leave and they keep sucking me back in. But okay, so my stepmom is the one who said the internet was the tool of the devil, which is ironic because she was probably right. And she's all over Facebook.
Yeah.
But
oh, the irony.
My mom, my bio mom, who I spent the summers with, she was the one who actually took me to church. Like I went to extreme white bread Southern Baptist church,
I'm so sorry.
where everybody was angry all the time. We sang bad hymns, and biblical literalism was the order of the day, right?
I'm familiar with this type of church. My dad is from the South.
Okay, yes, because my mom moved to the South with her the husband after my dad. And so but she, like, I was reading Animorphs or whatever, and she was like, those aren't real, right? And I'm just like, yeah. I mean, I feel like if they were real, these kids would all be like super dead for like revealing the Wu-Tang secret. You know what I mean? But goddamn, it's just this thing with religious fundamentalists and projecting their inability to separate reality from fantasy. And I feel like that's a big part of their stigma with D&D. Was like, and this might sound judgy as shit because it is, but
you've been warned.
But
also from your experience.
Yeah, I feel, I get the sense that, like if my mom had played D&D, maybe she would have, been like, oh, I mean, granted, the game doesn't have any of that shit, but I feel like she has trouble, like she read that and reads all kinds of conspiracy nonsense now. And just going down that rabbit hole.
I read that stuff too, but for entertainment purposes only.
Right, and that's what it's for. It's like horoscopes, man. Like, but it's just this separation from reality, and then the projection of it. Like, oh, you're living in a fantasy world where people deserve to get paid enough, and people should have the right to do what they want with their own bodies. Like, oh, you monster. And then anyway, the Earth's only 6,000 years old, and the Book of Revelations is definitely going to happen exactly as written, even though it's clearly an acid flashback.
Can confirm.
Okay, so Sam, I assume you grew up in a fairly Christian home, at least to some.
Yes, so my mom is from the Philippines, so Catholic, and then my dad is from the American Southeast, so Baptist, and I was never baptized into anything, but I was dragged to both churches on occasion.
I definitely got dunked in water when I was about 12 years old.
Oh no, they never did that to me. Thank you, my parents.
I was in jeans and a lime green t-shirt. Go ahead, Weston.
Sorry. Ultimately, just my parents, I was their first boy. My parents had just gotten together they had actually waited a couple of years to have me after they got married. My mom went through a rough divorce. My dad had just gotten out of basically a really bad legal situation that he was lucky to get out of. And they were both relatively new to this area that they moved to, separate from each other. When they met each other, it was sparks and blah, blah, blah. I ended up happening a couple years later. But when they had me baptized, they named my godparents as my mom's youngest brother and my dad's daughter from another relationship, who's about the same age as my mom's brother and a couple years younger than my mom.
Okay.
These two people I love them both. They're some of my favorite people on the planet, but they have both. It's so funny that they ended up being my godparents, because most of my other siblings, all my other siblings, godparents are very responsible people. Very, like, well put together, responsible human beings. My uncle and my sister are both kind of hot messes, in the best way, in a way that I absolutely am as well, which is why it's so funny it worked out that way. So just my baptism, I thought it's really funny that they ended up my godparents, because oh my god, we're all fucking hot messes.
But did either of you have the Left Behind books growing up?
My dad loved those books. I refuse to read them because I know propaganda when I see it.
I was extremely susceptible to that kind of propaganda when it came out, and I read, like, I think it was on up to book 6 or 7 before I stopped reading them and later became an annoying atheist.
Specifically an annoying one.
Oh, no. There is a distinction there. I have since left the annoying sect, and I feel like I pulled it back some. But, man, like, those... So I never saw the film adaptations, but I just remember reading the books and going, yeah, this is the way that the Revelations is going to play out for sure. Like... And
oh baby,
oh man, like I don't know. I part of me kind of wants to go back and read the series, like just because now I feel like I'm not quite as susceptible to fundamentalist Christian propaganda, and so
let's poll the audience. Dramatic reading of the Left Behind series on Nerdcrafty.
Maybe.
I'm shooting this down. God damn it.
No, we can make it a melodrama. It'll be funny.
Oh man, this is how we get Kevin Sorbo, okay? This is how we get Kevin Sorbo and Kirk Cameron, and I don't want any part of those two worlds.
I definitely watched God's Not Dead as an anti-religious adult. And it's one of the funniest things I've ever seen.
Mikey Mike 1987 says, nah, don't do it. No reading.
You know what, Mikey Mike? I appreciate it, dude. Like, because I might have roped myself into something that I did not want to do.
There's no way to make it good. You can't parody it. It's too stupid.
Okay, what if Ryan, you just do book reports?
Oh my god.
Oh my god. I kind of like that though.
Like a school-style book report where I get up in front of the class.
Yeah, like, it doesn't have to be anything like second grade level.
I read Left Behind
basically reading Rainbow.
And in it, the second seal has been broken. Or was it the trumpet? I can't remember. Plagues. And a non-married couple keeps their virginity. So, good for them. Oh, man.
You know, I think that's actually, I really wanted to talk about, like, how our perspectives have changed over the years. And I think this is a really decent segue, because this is the world we grew up in, you know? And while my mom was repressive, or my home life generally was repressive in a very different way, that it was kind of divorced from a lot of the religion. It was just weird. Yeah, we don't have to get into all of that. Ultimately, you know, I had a case of crazy guardians, people who were bad and also taking care of me.
Okay.
So not great for
basically,
me.
You're Yondu. if we're talking about crazy guardians.
No, I do appreciate the comparison to Michael Rooker, one of the great character actors of our era.
Oh my god, he's so good.
My situation was ultimately based in that same kind of mentality, though, and a lot of that does have to do with religious beliefs, but a lot of it just has to do with what is the status quo, what is our society's what is the role society has assigned us, especially as children growing up in Reading, during the end of the Clinton and during the beginning of the Bush regime, which was an incredibly reactionary period, just generally speaking, that tripled down on the already incredibly difficult to deal with nationalism that ramped up considerably during the Bush era. Yeah,
it's kind of funny, like, Trump era, like kids growing up in the Trump era were like, man, Bush doesn't sound that bad. It's like, no, you don't fucking get it, man. Like, yeah,
you weren't there, man.
That so many times on Twitter, just being like, you friggin' Zumas, you don't know how it was back in the day. We had to walk uphill the fascist forests.
You couldn't be openly gay. That wasn't allowed yet.
Oh yeah, heaven forbid. And you know what? We're getting back to those golden years. So good job, society.
It was a really interesting period, and I know me personally, it's taken me a really long time to unlearn a lot of the conditioning that I picked up as a kid, especially where it came to understanding, like, even my own gender and my sexuality and things like that. I tried to come out in high school, and it was basically like if you tried to throw up just a really easy, like, in the paint 2-pointer, and someone slaps that ball right down into your face, just absolutely spikes you in the mouth. It was like, no, you're not. You're doing this for attention. And it was like, no, I wanted to get with you. Yeah, and to be fair, I didn't really know what I was. There wasn't the kind of information that that is available now. I mean, especially because at the time I was constantly getting my internet access taken away from me at home. So I rarely, if ever, had a chance to look up things that obviously would have been really difficult for me to look up in the first place on the family computer with a search history visible.
See, Weston, your mistake was not being cishet and not having the internet. See, that's what I did, and it worked out swimming. So
yeah, I should have really tried that out, but
Wow, I don't think I've ever heard anyone use swimming without a British accent.
I do. Nope. It's a public service.
It was swimming.
Swimming.
But what is interesting is that I did try, and that is really interesting, especially in my opinion, from my perspective, because I spent literally my entire life as an actor. I've been acting since I was 3-4 years old. So the performance of gender, the performance of knowing, subconsciously knowing the subtext of what performing the gender of maleness meant, affected so many aspects of my life and who I presented to you, Ryan, to the rest of our classmates, and things like that.
I don't think we had any idea, because we were all weird in our own ways, and I don't think it even occurred to any of us, really. I mean, maybe you, but that any of us were anything but heterosexual, and gender, even though we knew someone at the time who was basically a poster child for not gender conforming.
Yeah, I mean, one of our oldest best friends, someone. Yeah.
So, I remember.
Sorry.
No. It's just we didn't really have a concept of it, except oh, that's just who they are. We refer to them as she because we, again, no idea. okay, so I was pissed at my parents once, and I ran off to our extremely non-gender conforming assigned female at birth friend. I ran off to their house and stayed the night there, and my parents were like freaked out because they were like, "You're not supposed to spend the night with a girl," and I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" Like, yeah, technically, I guess she's a girl, but.
But it was something you inherently knew what didn't fit. You know? And it wasn't because of how we were labeling them. It was because how they performed their own identity. Yeah. Like, our friend, I don't think they want us to mention their name. They're pretty low-key publicly, so...
sure, yeah, so I'm avoiding any names, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I remember
Everyone is just named Todd for now.
You know what, Todd?
I remember, because we all grew up together, and I remember when there was an incident that happened where actually your stepbrother and this person decided to run off.
Oh yeah, no, they stole a car. They stole Todd's mom's car.
Oh no!
And I'm gonna stick with the Todd thing just because, yeah.
Todd from Mario, I get it.
Yeah. But like stole the car and ran off to like the coast.
And we don't have to get through all the details. All I'm saying is that next year of school, because this was during the summer, that next year of school, that friend showed up to school presenting completely differently than they had ever presented before. And honestly, they were hot. I was super into it. And I didn't really know why at the time, but it was obviously because like I saw a part of myself in them, as well as always kind of having like a little bitty crush on them in the first place. But I saw this new brave version of them that was like, kind of had this swagger and like,
oh yeah,
like I can't remember if they came back and literally told me, I'm not this gender anymore, but they said something. We had a conversation that was along those lines, just like I think I might have asked, what's up with the new clothes or something like that, to try and be low key about it. But they were like, we had
awesome.
Yeah, and I brought that up to them recently in an instant message. I was just like, yeah, no. So like, because we hadn't talked in a really long time for reasons.
I've talked to them in a long time either, and I kind of want to like it. Yeah, they're one of those people that you want to continue a friendship with. Like
literally one of the coolest, best people I've ever met in my entire life. They completely changed my outlook. This is a person who changed my life. I love this person immeasurably, and in some cases I'm I'm still kind of intimidated by them, and that's sometimes why I don't reach out. But we reconnected a while ago, and I was like, I brought this moment up to them, and it was really cool. I just like tried to start the conversation with like, hey, I remember this moment, like, do you remember this? And like, I'm just trying to do a pronoun check-in with you. Like, do you still use those pronouns? Do you still go by this name? And they were like, oh, yeah. It kind of like nervously explained their way around how they're presenting now and their new name and stuff like that. It's not on their social media or anything like that, I don't think. And it was just like, oh, God, I miss this person so much. Their personality, like, coming out through the text and everything. I would love to have them on. I've tried to reach out a couple of times. Like I said, they are notoriously difficult to get a hold of.
Oh yeah. No, it's not
greatest
entirely
people.
For lack of trying. Like both my wife and I have tried to get hold of them a couple of times. Just check up, see how they're doing. But yeah, hard to get a hold of. And you know what? No judgment. Like I get
Absolutely,
it. Like
yeah.
Everybody's got great expectations nowadays, right?
Oh yeah. No, like
Mm-hmm.
just because we're choosing to live in if not a glass house, then a large windowed section of our houses, like doesn't obligate anybody we know to. Like
I want the plate glass. No,
Yeah,
the two-way mirror. Mirror on my side.
Yeah. As an actor, I do need the two-way mirror so that I can survive and hopefully book more gigs.
Oh yeah.
Just always on. There's no option. So yeah, I guess. Oh yeah, we keep tangenting.
Yeah, no,
Masculinity.
oh yeah, no.
Welcome to the
let's
ADHD
let's
podcast.
untangent. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have to like get too deep into that if like you're not quite prepared for that conversation. But
No,
yeah,
I am
I think
absolutely prepared for that conversation. Man, okay, so I feel like there is a confusion in a lot of mainstream circles, even purportedly like moderate circles. Like I've had friends, like I think my wife or me brought up the phrase toxic masculinity, and one of our friends is like, "What's that?" And another one's like, "Basically all masculinity." I'm like, no. Like, hang on,
Right.
let's
No,
put this.
that's part of it, though.
Yeah. And I honestly totally changed this guy's perspective. I was like, masculinity is like positive masculinity is the things that are traditionally associated with masculinity that are a positive trait, providing and protecting and but toxic masculinity is like, what are you crying because something bad happened, pussy, like that kind of shit. Like that's toxic. And he's like, oh, I didn't know that. I'm like, that's like toxic is a modifier.
Yeah.
And the word doesn't mean all. It's being a jerk to people. It's enforcing gender norms. It's with violence.
Yeah.
It's only expressing anger. Like that's like the only emotion that's allowed to be expressed. And believe it or not, in the military, you see that quite a bit.
Yeah, exactly. I know that. I mean, because you're a stud, you're a certified hunk and all. So I think that you obviously, especially having your background in the service, you have experienced quite a bit of that, and kind of like where
honestly, I have at times like done that. Like, it's not something I'm proud to say, but
sure.
like you get inundated with that kind of culture, and it's like if you're not inoculated against it, if you don't like really think about it, if you're just kind of going along, because again, I am non-confrontational to a fault, and so sometimes I'll just go along to get along, and that can create some really like negative traits if you let it manifest, if you let it metastasize, and like, so I joined the Army having a nerd job, but when I deployed, I got attached to like infantry units, and it was part of my job to like go out and arrest like suspected terrorists. And it's one of those scenarios where toxic masculinity is the norm.
Survival technique in a way.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's certainly like in terms of survival, I think I'm trying to put it into words. Like, the toxic masculinity is just a vehicle for being directive and aggressive, which is what the survival thing is. Like, in that kind of high stress like scenario, like in wartime, you can't put things to a vote or be like, hey guys, what do you think we should do? You need to go, okay, we need to you two take cover over there, provide suppressing fire, we're going to bound forward, and and then we'll do a bounding overwatch and assault that position, right? Like, or I need you to call in indirect fire on that position. We're gonna have danger close, you get behind cover. Like, it's directive and it's aggressive, and you don't have to be like a toxically masculine person to manifest those necessary qualities, but I think that they are wrapped up in it in our culture, if that makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Being on the opposite end of the spectrum, if I behave in that manner, even in circumstances where it normally would be thought of as a positive thing, like presenting female, I get called a bitch.
Oh yeah. No,
and this probably rears its head in the service as well. You know, I have heard no shortage of stories from from people who served and were assigned female at birth and had, I mean, we've seen plenty of stories in the news where some people don't ever make it out of that, you know?
Oh, for sure. Like, it was a shocking realization for me at some point in my Army career to realize every woman I talk to in uniform has a story. Like, it might not be, you know, like the absolute worst, but they at least have a creeper or a situation that was kind of sketchy, you know, or somebody who's just showing unsolicited, unwanted attention that made them uncomfortable at the very, very least. But most of them much sketchier than that kind of situations. And, you know, as someone who is a cis male, like, I don't experience that. And a lot of people, when they don't experience something, they just sort of invalidate it. You know, they don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a real eye-opener for me to you know, like, for a couple people to tell me their stories, or, you know, or when I was in Hawaii, our battalion commander, who was a female, actually, I think it was Army-wide, they made everybody watch a documentary called Invisible War, which is about people, not just women, but people and their stories of being sexually assaulted in the military. And it's some chilling stuff. Like, I haven't watched it since. It's been almost 10 years. But it's the kind of thing that, you know, you're like, oh, and that kind of thing, something in that vein seems to happen to every woman I have talked to in the military, like, regardless of service. And it shouldn't have come as such a shock to me, because, and this is probably the grossest thing I've ever heard in my life. So, apologies and content warning. But when I was in base, yeah, that's a big one. And it's not something that happened. It's something that was said. But when I was in basic training in 2004 at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, we were having a briefing about sexual harassment. At that time, sexual harassment and sexual assault were considered separate things. We were getting a briefing about sexual assault. And the motherfucker giving the briefing was going like, yeah, the Air Force, they've got the most child molesters, and the Navy, they've got the most homos, but Army and Marine Corps are tied for rapes. And there was like people were excited about that. Like, I not trying to be hyperbolic here, but from my recollections, there was like cheering, because we're not the weirdo child molesters or the wimpy gays. We're the disgusting. We're the aggressive manly rapists. Like, and that's not something I bring up often, but
Well, yeah,
it sticks in my craw for some reason.
That's not something to be
Oh, for
proud of.
Yeah,
and that
for some very strange reason. Yeah.
I will say that I spent more than a decade in the Army, and I think like the culture has gotten better. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done, but it went from that as recently as 2004. Granted, that was 18 years ago. Oh my God. I picked up the wrong grail on the last crusade. But
oh gosh.
Yeah, but still, like, that in 2004 to by 2014 or so, being like made to watch this like really chilling documentary about the effects of sexual assault in the military specifically, and just them acknowledging that sexual harassment and assault are in the same category. Like, one almost inevitably leads to the other, and that acknowledgement and that sort of zero tolerance culture in units where they care.
Right.
Like, I'm not saying there aren't corners of the Army where that sort of culture persists, because there are, almost certainly.
Right.
But in a lot of, especially mixed gender, like traditionally mixed gender job fields, that sort of thing is at least getting the attention it deserves in a lot of cases. Certainly better than it used to be. Again, not great.
Yeah,
but,
and the unfortunate reality is, like, as much progress has been made, much of it is to appease the number of people who were alarmed at the number of accusations coming out from the armed service, and ultimately are not going to be followed up with by senators or congresspeople, or even higher up in the branches of our government.
Yeah.
And by and large, that's because saying anything negative about the armed forces in this country is, it's going to cost you voters, because honestly, there's not too many voters who really care. But it'll cost you the alignment of certain lobbyists and their paycheck or their checks they're writing in.
Fuck the
and these people are.
I'm gonna say that out loud. Fuck the lobbyists.
I mean, honestly, I have a problem with them, but who's worse than the senators taking the money? The Congress people, the people that are supposed to be our elected officials, looking out for our best interests. I don't like the lobbyists by any stretch of the imagination, but I have nothing but condemnation for the type of people who would take those kinds of checks when they are supposed to be in public service.
Yeah, no, like, yeah, what really grinds my gears? Bribes. But no, like, I had to gently. So recently, you may have seen in the news that veterans who have been exposed to burn pits, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with the concept of burn pits.
No, I am.
Basically, in Iraq and Afghanistan, they, like, trash and classified material and stuff would be burned in these big open pits, and they'd have people man them just to make sure, like, especially with, like, classified material, to make sure it burned. But it wasn't all paper. There was a lot of plastic. There was a lot of there was a bunch of really toxic shit that went into those, and it's not until relatively recently that there's even been any acknowledgement that, hey, that's super unhealthy for the people that were exposed to that. And so in Congress, like, there was a bill that Jon Stewart was really banging the gong on that bill, sort of like he did for the 9/11 first responders that all got World Trade Center in their lungs. But he was really banging the drum on that, and wouldn't you believe it, but the Republicans initially voted it down. And, like, a coworker of mine, I was like, oh, did you see fucking Ted Cruz, like, fist bumping you know, about like not getting coverage for veterans exposed to burn pits, and she was like, I thought Republicans were really pro-troop, and I'm like, and another of our coworkers was just like, no, they're pro-defense contractor. It's different.
Yeah, and you probably don't want to talk too much about it, but you work with a number of people who were in the service, right?
Yeah, I do work with a lot of people who are in the service, you know, were and are. Like, I kind of stayed in the military adjacent sort of you know, industry, just, you know, and like there's a lot of people who care about that, and there's a surprising number of leftists, but right-wing culture is sort of the mainstream, and it's not my favorite, but but it keeps my
It only bringing it up just to note that these people definitely know what they're talking about when it comes to the government and the armed service. So yeah, I mean, when they tell you the government doesn't care about us, and especially not any Republican ever, you should probably just take their word for it. You know, don't try and debate. Don't try and debate on it.
I mean, honestly, how can we believe that ever since Vietnam?
Right. Yeah.
We saw how those veterans were treated.
And
fool me once, shame on me.
It chaps my ass when people are like, oh, the leftists were super mean to Vietnam vets. It's like, what United States are you talking about? Because based on my understanding, and granted I wasn't there because it was forever ago, but based on my understanding, a lot of the most vocal anti-war advocates were people who had gotten drafted and went there, who had the experience and were like, no, this is horrible. And, you know, people like that were being welcomed by leftist organizations because it's like, you were there, you got the credibility, you know. Like, I can't think of too many leftists who would, you know, like, just out of hand, like, dismiss somebody because when they were 17, they made the decision to join the military.
And if they did say that, you know what I would not do is take them seriously as a person.
Yeah, you know?
Because, especially where we grew up, I mean, there are any number of people who never got to see even their political viewpoints come to any kind of fruition because they're fucking dead.
Yeah.
So, you know, don't talk to us about that kind of shit. That is our perspective, is that there are kids that we knew that are no longer here because of a pointless war that was ultimately all for the greed of a very select number of people in our society that profited immensely during this period. And they are, you know, war criminals. They should be jailed, and we should probably do whole international, you know, what is it? Tribunal? I'm trying to think of the right word.
So, fun fact, the United States is not part of the International Criminal Court. We are one of the only countries that is not. So...
Oh, we're the world police. What would we need to be a part of that for?
Exactly, yeah. Bananas. What do I know? I'm just some guy. But...
Well, it sounds like they should be doing something about it because we're out of control.
Right?
Yeah, right.
Oh my goodness. Like, but yeah, it's sort of like interesting. Like, most veterans, I think, who are very politically aware tend to be leftist. Like, people that do their... Pat Tillman, who was... Do you guys remember him?
Name sounds familiar. No.
He was an NFL football player who, in the early 2000s, decided that in the aftermath of 9/11, they were going to join the Army. They quit the NFL. They joined the Army, and like he was in the infantry. Like he wasn't just like Elvis style. Well, Elvis is kind of a bad. He did kind of army stuff, but you know, he wasn't like showboating being in the army. He joined the Rangers. You know, was an infantryman, went Ranger, and that's like the infantryist of the infantry, right? They're the guys that do the take that hillside sort of thing. And then he gets killed by friendly fire. And the U.S. government does their damnedest to cover it up. But while he was in, and, you know, when the story was that he died a hero's death and, you know, was killed by Al-Qaeda or whatever, they, like he was held up as a poster child by the right wing, by the pro-war, like, oh, look at this heroic patriot sacrificing for... Dude was a leftist. He was an atheist. Like, he like read Chomsky and Howard Zinn and stuff, and, you know, really didn't like. I can only speculate as to his reasons for doing what he did, but he was not by any stretch a right winger, and so it's kind of interesting to me to see like these, you know, people who like Joe Schmuckatelli Republican holds up as you know, the avatar of American masculine, you know, patriotism, and for them to no that they had their own perspectives, they're people. And I mean, that's not to say there aren't quite a few veteran Trump supporters, but I notice that most of the really like hardline QAnon folks tend to come from like less traumatic career fields, who may not have encountered all of the horrors that you might encounter. Congressman Dan Crenshaw being a notable exception.
I was hoping you were going to say Dan Crenshaw.
Oh,
yeah. You know, yeah. What an interesting figure. I could say so much, but I think we only have about a half hour left, so I don't want to talk about. I don't want to spend that talking about Dan fucking Crenshaw.
No, you know what? Nah. Except to say that Pete Davidson should never have had to apologize for anything except his existence. But other than that,
he has apologized for that a lot.
It's his shtick, kinda. But I, you know what I do want to talk about is how much I look like Timothée Chalamet, and probably should have had a career by now.
Oh shit! Oh, you could be Muad'Dib.
I am. Damn it! I am.
So when Nerdcrafty does its production of Dune.
Oh man!
No, but you know what's funny is I actually you can find this on Bandcamp. It's called Flowers in a Jar, and it's a 3 or 4 track EP that I made with 2 of my friends in a garage one hot summer day while I think we were on something. Or
nice save.
We couldn't just.
They were on a couch, audience.
Yeah. So it's a 3 or 4 song EP all about the world of Dune, and it's noisy, it's chaotic, it's very punk rock. It doesn't like make sense or harmony musically, but we made it in a day, and it exists, and it's on the internet. So you might as well hear it from me than somewhere else later.
yeah. When you inevitably like, you know, run for president and this gets exposed later, no, you're just ripping off the Band-Aid.
Weston wouldn't run for president. He's not that dumb.
Can you? No, I would. I hella would. Have you ever seen Wild in the Streets?
No.
I have not.
Wild in the Streets is this wonderful little 60s, like, I don't know if you could call it radical. It is radical, but I wouldn't even call it, it's been a minute since I watched it. And I know that the last time I watched it, I was like, maybe I don't agree with everything this movie says politically. like I thought when I first watched it. But ultimately, it's the story about this kind of Jim Morrison type character who quickly rises to fame, and with the power of the youth vote, essentially gets a senator elected that's a buddy of his, who then passes reforms that change the age of the president to 18, making it legal for him to run for president. He wins. He lowers the voting age to 14.
Oh yeah, I've heard about this fucking thing.
It's so much fun, and Richard Pryor's in it as like, I think he's one of the band members. I can't remember what he plays. I can't remember. Either way,
I've never seen it, but I feel like in concept it's like Reefer Madness, but the Reefer is young people.
Oh my.
And I think when I watched it last, yeah, that's very accurate. And I watched it last, it was like in 2016, so I was like, oh, maybe the idea of a celebrity being president is not Pogger or based. But I am a huge. So I like the idea of a Jim Morrison type, or like a Jimi Hendrix type, like one of those people. Can you imagine if like someone like that had ran in the 60s and won? That would have been wild. The kind of world that we live in today, and they might not have changed that much, but you can't say that they would have had no impact. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think it's a fascinating exercise, and if I were ever in that position, I would not fuck around with not running for public office, because I know I'm a hell of a lot smarter than fucking Mitch McConnell. I mean, that man is the stupidest human being possibly in the entire United States. And I don't mean that in a way that he's like unintelligent. I just mean that he's like actively participating in the death that will be his own as well. You know, of the planet, but you know, just stupid in the way that you have no foresight, you're a bad person, and you probably should. I mean, you're just a waste of human life and existence on the planet.
If there is a hell.
Yeah, and I wouldn't reserve that condemnation for just Mitch McConnell, but virtually every politician in the United States.
I could fix things very easily. My pick for president: any Asian mom. They will straighten everything out so fast, or they will destroy everything in the process, leaving room for something new.
When I was living in Hawaii, my landlord was an Asian mom, and I had a bad experience. So no offense to Asian moms out there, but you're gonna have to prove yourself before I get the taste of shitty landlord out of my mouth.
Yeah, but think how well an Asian mom could deal with Ted Cruz.
You know what?
The takedowns would be incredible. I am on board for the most part.
I've changed my mind. She's got my vote. Good point, Sam. I cede to you.
It's because they don't have filters. They just say what is wrong as bluntly as possible. And then they tell you to fix it.
I'm not a fan of that. But, you know, yeah, I don't know. Like, what if no more president? That would be pretty tight, too. I'm just saying.
What if no more unjust hierarchies?
Yeah, you know, I'm a fan of that idea. That's, you know, that's where my vote goes.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not 100% sold on Kropotkin style anarchism. But man, it sounds really nice. Like,
yeah, I think any anarchist would admit that, you know, they're not. Well, I don't know. I can't say that. I can say that I was radicalized, at least in part, by a Marxist-Leninist, and I'm an anarchist. But I hold a lot of those, that theory from when I was first learning about left theory, as like, I mean, obvious reference points for anyone who's a leftist. Kropotkin uses them. So anyone who says that anarchists can't also be communists, I think you're kind of an absurd little weirdo on the internet. So yeah, that's my perspective as an anarchist. I definitely can see like how by itself the theory that is presented is not necessarily one that everyone would 100% get along with. But I think, at least in my opinion, a multitude of tactics and a multitude of ideas will have to be utilized in order to upend the hegemonic order. And there's no way I could, or there's no individual, obviously, but there's also no collective of just anarchists, just socialists, or just communists that will ever be able to change that hegemonic order by itself without the allegiance of their fellow leftists. So, you know, I love my commies. I love my socialists. I can stand a liberal as long as I don't have to hear them talk.
I am not going to be able to monetize this on YouTube.
Oh no.
Yeah.
We've said commies way too many times.
Hey. That's why we have. Do we have a Patreon?
We do have a Patreon.
That's why we have a Patreon. See.
Yeah.
It's still a baby Patreon, but we do have a Patreon.
Yeah, but see, it can get bigger. I believe in us.
Yeah, we put out this kind of content.
That's how you get away with you know, unmonetizable nonsense.
Exactly. Yes.
You know, you give the power to the people to support their non-monetizable nonsense.
Weston's Venmo is on screen at all times during the stream, so feel free.
Indeed.
Thanks, Sam. Yeah. I am struggling, and I could use your money to not do that anymore. But also, I totally understand if you are also struggling. The world is on fire, and it's bad. And, you know, I think if you're more down to organize and, you know, get some stuff done, I'm way more into that. So hit me up if that's what you're into.
Also, he has soft skills and can draw for you.
Have you read Homage to Catalonia by George Orwell?
That's the Spanish Revolution, right?
Spanish Civil War, yeah.
Civil War, sorry. Yeah. I have not read it, but I wikied it a few times.
I struggled the first time I tried to read it, but the second time it kind of grabbed me. And it's always fun for moderates to hear that he fought for an anarchist militia called the Party of Marxist Unity. In Spanish, obviously, but
Not
like to shoot fascists. Like, he was a journalist. He was like, actually, I think fascists should all be shot. So let's go shoot fascists. And people are like, but in 1984, it's English socialism that's the dystopian government. And I'm like, well, yeah, because he had beef with the Soviets for chasing him out of Spain on pain of death.
And also, fascists have been trying to mask themselves as socialists since
National
forever.
Socialism is what Nazi means. So, rah, rah, rah. My mom tried to get me with that one. And that you know, it's pretty easy to find counter examples to that if you know, think about it for like 5 seconds. But I don't know. Either way, Homage to Catalonia, highly recommend as a piece of leftist theory. So like this kind of comes back to, you know, leftists, military, all that stuff. He talks about his experience in an anarchist military, you know, and how that is structured and how it plays out. Like talking about like a you know, generals and privates smoking and joking, which I don't know if you have perspective to appreciate how completely outlandish that sounds on its face to people who know the gulf between a general and a private. Okay, so me in that picture, that's a private, and then like goddamn George Clooney is general equivalent. Okay, so if we're just talking like gulfs in general between people, and just smoking and joking, and then it's time for combat, and it's like each soldier just follows the instructions for survival and because they have a common cause. But there's not really like, you know, outside of like necessary situations, it's not a, you know, an environment where there are hierarchies. And it was really interesting to read that and kind of eye-opening. And yeah, as a piece of leftist theory, like, worth reading, I think.
No, definitely. I definitely have heard a lot of the kind of more modern critiques of Orwell that I can definitely see are valid. But I also think that to throw out everything Orwell ever did because he said some stupid ass shit
He was kind of a piece
would
of
be
shit in a lot of ways.
Yeah, but it'd be irresponsible to just ignore everything he ever said because he was not always a very nice person and said and did a lot of really shitty things. As well, you know, I mean, shit's complicated. History is complicated. People are complicated.
Yeah, Martin Luther King
You know.
Jr. had some personal issues, you know, like, you know, he slept around, and you know, but he also did a lot of really important things and had a lot of important stuff to say and do, and especially the not whitewashed parts.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And honestly, like comparatively, I mean, Jesus, because we're talking about like how these two people have a very different public reputation than who they were as people. You know, George Orwell's like very like weird. The weird people who think that George Orwell's a Republican, and the weird people who think that Martin Luther King only ever said, you know, our children are treated the same, maybe.
Yeah, that's all he said. He said, "I have a dream." End of his whole bibliography. That's all you needed.
Absolute clown shoes. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very different.
No,
they're very different people from how they're presented most of the time, especially in the educational system in this country. I don't know about now, but definitely when we were growing up.
No, like that happens with a lot of historical figures, like and Helen Keller being a prime example. Everybody just knows, oh, she was blind and deaf. Holy shit. And it's like she was also an outspoken socialist and union organizer, you know? Like she had a lot of cool things to say, but nobody wants to talk about that one. Although she was a socialist. She was absolutely a socialist. My first acknowledgement of her political beliefs, though, was my mom telling me she was a liberal.
And just like that.
So funny.
Yeah. Oh, listen. I'm sure you know as well as I do that in some circles, that is the only way to pronounce liberal. Liberal.
That's true. It is only two syllables.
Which means anyone to the left of Pinochet, pretty much, counts.
Are you a moderate? Liberal.
Oh my god, left of Pinochet. Yeah, that's not inaccurate.
No, I know a shocking amount of people. Well, not shocking, just a depressing amount of people who have been Fox News grade poisoned, and yeah, it's just there's good people and there's liberals, and that's pretty much it, you know. Which is why you have like Biden. I guess socialist like has sort of entered the vernacular completely inaccurately as like, okay, if liberals are to the left of Pinochet, then socialists, which are liberals but like way more, well, you're talking about Pelosi.
Oh no!
And communists are basically just socialists, but even more. And so
I'm gonna start a GoFundMe to start sending dictionaries to Congress. Like, here, look up what words you're actually trying to say.
Oh no.
I support this.
They need dictionaries or thesauruses or something.
They need Jesus.
The real one.
The real one.
The real one, the communist, the brown communist, that hated the rich people. That one.
Yeah, that turned over the money changers tables and said the rich are as likely to get into heaven as a camel through the eye of a needle, and was pro-sex worker.
Yeah. Did I already tell you that I looked up? You might have heard this bit before, but I recently looked up a picture of like the historically accurate Jesus, quote unquote, that is often kind of like goes around the internet. It's like you know the one I'm talking about.
I think I have seen that before.
I looked at that picture and I don't know why,
it
but it
looks
was
like he would be on the FBI's terrorist watch list.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I was looking at that photo, and I don't know what, like, in me put this together, but I was like, oh man, if that man had a baby with Zizek, I would be the child. I would look like that child of those two people.
Oh man, this is where your cult starts, right? This is where you go all David Koresh on us.
No,
I'm
never.
basically the child of Zizek and Jesus.
Nerdcrafty does not endorse any cults of any type, thank you.
That's, mischaracterize me how you want, right?
I only got out of one cult like 2 years ago. I'm not in for a new one.
Okay, but Weston's really cool, so think about it.
No. I'm never going to start a cult. I think I brought this up on stream before, but my old noise band made that.
Oh, yeah, no, okay. I remember you talking about that when you lived in Rosa, Urameshi, right?
Right. So one night we were all hanging out together, and they kind of just said, like, they said I could be a cult leader. Like, they said it in a way that was a compliment. Like, they were really trying to be nice.
They were saying you were charismatic.
Yeah, but they said it like, you could be a cult leader. And
yeah, so they said it the weirdest way
possible. When I was like just getting sober, or maybe not sober at all, actually, I can't remember. But either way, it was a wake-up call for me. But yeah, it genuinely was like this kind of wake-up call for me, where I was like, who am I? What have I become? And like started doing some kind of soul searching at that point, because yeah, it's one of the scariest things that's ever been said about me and my personality. I can get that. Sure, they might have just been complimenting me, saying I'm charismatic or whatever, but man, cults are so scary, and I never want to be associated with that kind of mentality, especially like now. I mean, who I am now compared to even who I was just, like less than 10 years ago, It's a very different place that I'm in. And I'm very grateful for that. I've worked really hard to get here. I think, at least in part, that's why I'm so glad we had you on today, because I know that we've both kind of had those same kind of journeys, unlearning a lot of the harmful conditioning that we picked up as kids, and, what that looks like for us now, and how, like, that conditioning manifests even even today for me, it's like something I'm gonna probably be working on for the rest of my life,
Oh yeah, no, unconscious biases bite you in the ass pretty regularly. Like, not you specifically, but people. Like,
no, yeah, absolutely. It's you learn it from so many different aspects of our culture, from media to school to your parents, in most cases. I know, I mean, I honestly, you probably heard me talk quite a bit about my dad last week if you were in chat, but I love my dad, but I certainly learned a lot of really toxic behavior from him.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I can acknowledge how much work he himself did to not be the parent that he had in his father, I also can see how much work and how beneficial the work I could do on myself to not be him, or luckily not his father either. It's in fact where I kind of learned that it was possible, is from my pops. So it would be a disservice to him to not do it better than him.
Yeah, I mean, and honestly, I feel like even if it's not the better, that like something that like attitudes and perspectives that they would think are better, I feel like in general, our parents want us to be better than them. Like,
Right. Absolutely.
you know, I talked a lot of shit about my mom, talked a fair bit of shit about my dad, but like, yeah, they love me, I love them. They you know, and I can tell that they want me to be to for me to be a positive force in the world. I appreciate that, even though our ideas of what a positive force is might differ greatly.
Damn.
Like,
Yep.
that's feeling on. But
We are all terrified skin bags of meat and bone, so we should all be nice to each other.
oh yeah, no, that's
Fair.
I think you would be hard pressed to find somebody who didn't at least agree with the second clause of that statement.
Nah, I like both parts of it.
No. Yeah, I'm pro both parts. Like, again, my religious upbringing, you know, got me to go far in the opposite direction to annoying atheists. Like, I read The God Delusion by Richard Dawkins and God is Not Great by Christopher Hitchens, and I never read any Sam Harris, and I'm grateful I didn't, because oh man. But
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that gets into the whole intellectual dark web case of nonsense. But I'm too many tangents. No, but you know, I was unreligious with the fervor of a recent convert. Like, I literally got one of those Richard Dawkins Scarlet A atheist T-shirts. Like, I literally had that. And yeah, like yeah, early 20s, like there was a lot, like, being insulting to religious people's faces that maybe they didn't deserve. Like,
Maybe.
perfectly nice people who believe what I think is total nonsense, and me just, oh, those are your deeply held beliefs? Guess what, motherfucker?
Yeah, that might not be the
They're
best presentation.
stupid. Yeah, you know, so I like to think I have since cooled it, and you know, I am comfortable in a universe where, you know, there is no supernatural, like that is, you know, that feels consistent to me, but who am I to just discount everybody else's beliefs out of hand, even if they're not for me? If they're not hurting me, then why should I, like, you know, try to, like, you know, shake them out of their brainwashing, so to speak? Like, be a good person and lead by example, I think is the best way to, you know, convince people that your philosophy is more gooder.
Mikey Mike's back with a hard fact for us. Sam Harris's mom was a writer on The Golden Girls.
I never watched The Golden Girls, so I don't even have that association with Sam Harris. Although I have heard it's actually very, very funny.
I enjoy it. It's fun.
I might have to dig it up and watch a couple episodes and see what the hype was all about.
Yeah, you know, it's a classic. It's a classic.
I mean, I know, you know, in her lifetime, Betty White was basically America's princess. America's old princess.
She was older than sliced bread.
From your tone, I assume that is an actual literal fact.
It's an actual fact.
God damn.
Sliced bread was the best thing since Betty White.
And yet.
Yeah. What were we talking about before Betty White?
Oh shit. being a goddamned atheist.
Oh yeah, thank you. Because we only have. I guess we only have a few minutes left, but yes,
Well, if you guys want to keep going, I could let the stream keep going.
What's your time looking like, Ryan?
I do have to give up the computer as scheduled.
Okay.
Okay, fair enough. Well then,
I
just
want to do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, Weston, you and I do tend to bounce off each other with our tangents, and yeah, Sam, you're always well. I'm not going to invite you onto Weston's stream.
I produce
You're fun to talk to too. Yeah, that's true. You can do whatever you want.
I'm always here.
Yeah, I mean we've been bouncing off each other since way back in this image. You know, it's a chemistry that I am very familiar with, and I love I love you, man. I appreciate you being here with us today. We only have a few minutes left, and yeah, I just closing arguments on the atheism thing. I was just like realizing, yeah, I mean, there's no way you could have been more insufferable. Not to get into a measuring contest about who was more annoying with their atheism, but I do own every book Anton LaVey ever wrote. So,
oh man,
yeah, I mean, Satanism is like atheism.
It's atheism with a side of fuck you, mom and dad. Like
it's atheism, but metal.
Yeah.
No, you know, I am a Satanist still to this day. I've divorced myself from a lot of the really stupid shit that LaVey wrote. There is nuggets of really good stuff in there that, you know, I don't even think LaVey would take credit for himself, although he would probably do that, now that I said it. But yeah, so I don't know. I just was watching the Channel 5. You watch Channel 5, Ryan?
I do not.
Well, Andrew Callahan's one of the best journalists, and he went and interviewed a bunch of, it was like a whole thing. He interviewed Satanists, and it was just one of those moments where I was like, man, I am so embarrassed by these people that I am in any way associated to. Why cannot they conduct themselves in any way that doesn't make us all look like the stupidest people?
It's because they've gathered together.
Yeah. None of us is as dumb as all of us.
Yeah, no, it happens with every religion. If they gather, the IQs start to drop.
Yeah, there is nothing dumber than well, you know what, that might be actually cynical and a bit reactionary to say that collectives are inherently dumber than individuals. We were talking about because, you know,
I'm saying specifically religious ones.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But yeah.
But no, you
kind
of get, yeah. I'm not trying to shit on you, Sam, but like it kind of like brewed my head there for a second that I was gonna just instinctually say that, like I did say that none of us is dumb as all of us, which, you know, like having been raised by someone who owns a copy of Atlas Shrugged with tabs in it for all his favorite parts, thumbed through like an old Bible, like, you know, maybe that, again, that's just one of those unconscious kind of biases in my head that I've never really given any proper thought to. It's fucking deep.
Yeah. No, it's an interesting point. And I, you know, well, you already know what I feel about collectives. I'm a big fan. Collectivism is one of my all-time favorite things. But I do absolutely 100% see how a lot of the time it's we're back to cults. You know, we're back to Bethel Church.
We're back to mob rule and just like individualist anarchism to some extent versus
a fire in every hearth and a pitchfork in every hand.
Yeah, it can be a weapon, you know, just like most other tools, especially tools of social tools, you know, it can be used very aggressively, but it's also a very powerful tool that can be used for incredible, powerful change, you know, across large swaths of your society. And, yeah, obviously they're two very different mentalities. The only real similarity is finding that community, and with a lot of cult mentality, a lot of religious, I wouldn't even say religious, because like we were saying earlier, religion itself isn't necessarily the bad thing. It's people who wield it like a weapon. I think that it's that the mentality that once you have formed that collective of, essentially personality, without any kind of material evidence for the things that you believe, your ideology, you kind of have to just base it on who's got the loudest voice, who's got the most charisma. And that's a really dangerous thing, because those people, sometimes they can and be really good members of their community and leaders of their community, but sometimes they can be really exploitative, abusive, and much, much worse.
Yeah, sometimes you get a Jim Jones who's,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think knowing the difference between a cult and a collective is a really powerful distinction to be able to make, especially in this day and age where there are so many kind of like tribalist positions that people will take on without even thinking about it, sometimes subconsciously, these warlike fractions of Marvel versus DC fans and things like that. And honestly, most of the time never really even address anything but the aesthetics. Very rarely going into the actual material of these stories, these characters, the beliefs that they obviously hold that you can see through the subtext or through their actual dialogue.
Talking about subtext. Maybe plot holes, but yeah, we're certainly not going to talk about any subtext.
Right. Yeah.
But that's my favorite text.
Yeah. So I guess everybody, if there's, we're wrapping up. If there's a message I want to, deliver, it's like, ultimately, find the kind of people to be around that are going to bring you into a collective or a community and not into a cult. There are big differences, and me and Ryan have seen the fallout from, both, how some can be wielded and used for good and how some can be wielded to do great harm.
Also, watch out for the ones that are disguised as businesses.
Oh, yeah. Amway is a big one. Oh, man, don't get me started on multi-level marketing or we'll be here all day. So
that's a whole other podcast.
That is a whole other kettle of fish. But yeah, I think that's all we had. Yeah.
I think we're definitely wrapping up here. Before we get out of here, I want to thank everyone for coming and joining us in the chat and all of your commentary. I definitely want to thank one of my best buds in the whole world, Ryan Hart, for being here with me today while I drew us being absolute dorks in our cheap high school with the set we made and costumes we thrifted.
It looks like Pulp Fiction now.
A little bit of Reservoir Dogs. Yeah, thanks, Sam.
Honestly, thank you. That's it's quite the compliment, really. Because, I took our broke-ass high school production today and made it look like one of the biggest movies ever made. So, thank you guys. And thank you, Sam, for all that you do, for jumping into the conversation and providing your own commentary. And this was a great stream. Thanks everyone for coming, and we'll see you next Tuesday, 3:30 to 5:30 Pacific Standard Time, right here at twitch.tv/nerdcraftylv. Is there anything you guys want to say to close up?
Just thank you, Weston, for being an awesome stream host.
Thanks, Weston, and thanks, Sam, for being an awesome stream producer. And for everybody else, be cool to each other.
Yeah, and party on, dudes.
Party on.